All right. Well, Allie Cox, welcome to the Ag Culture Podcast. So good to have you here today. You are the founder and CEO of a company called Noble West, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you about a topic that I haven't really covered on this podcast much in the past. So I'm glad I have an expert in this area here today. And before we get into our topic, what first drew you into agriculture and food branding?
Well, I think I have to answer that, Paul, in two parts. What drew me into agriculture is I didn't have another choice. I was born into this family of fifth generation farming on both sides of my family. So this is just who we are and it's who I am. But what drew me into marketing is, a choice I made as an adult, or I guess a 19-year-old, which is technically an adult. But I really just have always loved marketing. And even as a kid, I was creating businesses and creating like compelling ways to market, like lemonade stands and all the rest of it. And then I think that just my path to through marketing, it was my major in college and it's what I've always loved. But what drew me into agriculture marketing was super intentional. It was about 13 years ago. I had already been in business for myself for 5 years doing entertainment marketing. And I worked at big agencies back in New York. I lived in New York for 10 years doing marketing. And it was about 13 years ago where I just was like, there's got to be a different way to market ag. And ag is not food, and food, but food is ag. And I just kind of really had an epiphany about needing to be that solve for the industry, and just started putting one foot in front of the other and started sunsetting clients that were not in the agriculture industry very intentionally, and just kind of creating a strong point of view. And I just could not be more happy with where Noble West is now and the kind of work that we're doing and the incredible people that we're servicing. And it is just it's in mission and in service of securing our food system. And, I have a vested interest in making sure that my kids have the opportunity to farm and 15 years if they choose to. So it's definitely an exciting time.
Awesome. Before we get into the details of what you do in your business, where did the name Noble West come from? That something that is past family lore, or what was the idea behind that?
We're talking about my firstborn child is my agency. Noble West is I rebranded to Noble West 3.5 years ago. And I decided, because I was Allie Cox and Company for a long time, and then we were AC&C, and I just felt very compelled that it was time to change the name. I don't think there was any more like juice to get out of that name, and really wanted to create an opportunity to talk about what we do and the work this agency does in service of the team, because I am a team first person. I was in the ultimate team sport in the Olympics. So I truly value teamwork more than the average person. And so I wanted our name to reflect the good work that we do as a group and as a collective, and not just the Allie Cox story. And so with, noble hearts and westward thinking, that's where we just kind of continue to lean on Noble West. And Noble technically translates to Allison in Latin, and my name is Allison. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then West. I think when one of my business partners was like, I was recruiting her to come on board, and she's like, "So what are your clients like?" Because she had been working in the advertising industry for 15 years. So what are your clients like? I said, our clients are cowboys and cowgirls. Like, they are not afraid of a challenge. They are not afraid of hard work. They're not afraid to go at it alone. They're not afraid to bring their family along. Like, they are cowboys and cowgirls who just are going to do anything it takes to be an honorable person and to think in service of the greater good. And oftentimes in their case, the greater good is the family farm. So that's kind of the background. Thank you for asking. I love talking about Noble West.
Well, I figured if we're going to be talking about branding, we should probably understand your brand, right? That's kind of an important part of it. So you were in branding and other areas of business, not specifically in agriculture to start. But what gap did you see in food and agriculture that led you in this direction and just focus purely on that?
Well, there's really a couple things. So the first is I mentioned that I lived in New York for 10 years,
Yep.
and that was after the Olympics. And
Which we're going to come back to that. So don't forget that.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. And I don't mean to like just drop that. We're talking about the timeline. So that is kind of an important milestone in my personal timeline. But it was right after the Olympics, and I had moved to New York, and I was working at IMG, and I was working at Ketchum, and restaurant culture is the culture in New York, right? Like where people are competitive about reservations and the tables they sit at, and it's delicious. Who doesn't love incredible food? I know I do. And so, but I just was really aware of the gap in knowledge between people loving food and loving their food experience and having really no understanding about where their food comes from. And these are educated people. And, I think there's just was a sense of, I don't know, just like an aspirant sort of nostalgia for thinking all the tomatoes in New York City came from a cute little tomato garden in New Jersey. And that's just not the case, right? And my father has farmed tomatoes my entire life. He was the president of the California Tomato Growers Association for years. So I just knew those things intellectually. And I just I don't know, I just sort of saw that people didn't get it. And it's not because they weren't smart. They just maybe just didn't have the access. And frankly, it's because they didn't understand it, and it was not their fault. So that was sort of the aha moment. I'm like, I have such a calling that's different than everything I'm around. And then there was there was just sort of I don't know, if you're religious, I don't know, sort of God's plan putting messages in front of me. Yep. And then my dad called me one day, and he's like, I just left the California Dry Bean Advisory Board meeting, and they're trying to decide if they should spend $100,000 on a Sunset Magazine ad. He's like, oh, I don't know if they should or not. Isn't that what you do? And I was like, Dad, that's a terrible decision. They don't even have a call to action. There's if you're going to do that, you should bring in a partner. They should bring in different bean packers in California who might want to pitch in. It was just and he's like, okay, you have to come home and do this. And I was like, you know what? I've been gone for 17 years. You're right. I do need to come home and do this. And that sort of was the catalyst. And then there was a couple other data points. And now I'm just completely focused and level set on being the absolute best specialty agriculture and food ingredient marketing agency in the world. And it's come full circle. And I think that we're very much so doing that kind of level of work for our clients.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You mentioned one thing, the consumer perception, right? Mm-hmm. So usually consumers think with emotion, and farmers are really good at thinking logically, right? And a lot of time those two don't see eye to eye, or it's hard to bring them together. So what have you done in your branding, the companies that you're working with, the organizations that you're working with, to bridge that gap?
Well, I think that where the ag industry continues to shoot themselves in the foot is by marketing the ag industry and not marketing their end product, which is food. Over and over again. Think of all of the commercials you've seen with a tractor in a field. Nobody wants to buy a tractor in a field. And frankly, if they knew more about if they knew more about regenerative agriculture, they might have more questions about what that tractor's doing, right? But that's just a place where continually, it's we always say oh, great, another farmer in a flannel. That's sort of our internal joke. It's oh, another flannel in a shirt. Nah, flannel. And then that's sort of our code for being just doing basic marketing. And that's just not where I think that when we think about our consumer and our end user, it doesn't matter if the farmer and the consumer see eye to eye, as long as there's some mutual respect. And when I say mutual respect, it's not like the farmer's going to go shake their consumer's hand that's, buying whatever at their personal grocery store. In some cases they are, some of our produce clients can really understand their end consumer, but a lot of the ingredients, they're not ever going to have that opportunity. But it is about understanding that what consumers value is more transparency and pricing, and what they want to know more about their food. And that's what they care about, their end product. What a farmer values is not, I'm not saying they don't care about the quality, and there's a lot of pride that comes with farming, but it's really the yield. It's the yield per acre. You and I both know it. So if we're harvesting almonds this time of year, we're talking about our yield per acre on every single field that we're harvesting. So are we? Hopefully we're somewhere around 3,000 pounds an acre. That's sort of a benchmarking good. That means a good harvest, right?
Yep.
Now, does a farmer, is a consumer going to have any insights into that? No. And like, that's where there's just such a misalignment between needs. Like farmers need to hit those yields in order to even break even, like in order to even like make sense of all of the expenses. And that's where a consumer just doesn't have access to that kind of information. And so if we're trying to sell and promote like that lifestyle of farming, it's just completely shooting ourselves in the foot. We need to be promoting and selling like the quality of this food. Like for example, here in Central California, the quality of the food grown in Central California is absolutely incredibly, like incredible. How it's grown, by whom it's grown, with social responsible practices that are highly monitored by the CDFA and the USDA. I mean, you would be really hard pressed to find a more quality product, frankly, anywhere in the world besides organic gardens and some organic, there's some great farming happening at a much smaller scale in different parts of Europe and Turkey and Spain, but this is definitely the place. And I just think that the misalignment is really rife, especially if you're selling a commodity crop, which I know you want to talk more about.
Yeah, let's dig into that here a minute. We were talking about that before we hit record, but I've done some episodes in the past where a niche producer had a specialty market, a consumer facing farm stand, those type of things. We've seen that before, but how do you market a true commodity on a massive scale and make an impact as a brand?
Yeah. So I think that like sort of is the conundrum. And
We've struggled with that in agriculture since the beginning of marketing, right?
Since ever, right? Yeah. And so that's where I'll say that if you're trying to move a commodity with just sort of like nutritional awareness, that's like frankly the mandate of all of the marketing order boards. So the California, the Almond Board and the Walnut Commission, and that is the goal. That is just an inherently different challenge of actually selling a brand. And I think that we just need to understand, and this is where if there was better marketing across the board, and we're seeing it in some pockets, I would say citrus is doing a great job of this right now. Berries are doing a good job, but in a fresh produce sect. But what I'll say is that if we are looking to create brand awareness about the nutrition that is on the back, that should be on the back of the marketing orders, and those farmers are paying an assessment, or in the Midwest, they call it a checkoff dollar, in order to promote what that, like the value of that commodity. That is a very broad approach, but if you want to talk about a brand, that's where the consumer knows they're buying a Driscoll strawberry, and there's expectations for that Driscoll strawberry. That also means that from a pricing perspective, there's a lot more variance that can happen based on how expensive it costs to grow that strawberry. Right. If you are selling that as like a private label commodity crop in like a retail grocery store, then you're really you're beholden to like how that grocery store is respected by their consumers. So if you're a Wegmans in upstate New York or in the back east, and it says Wegmans on it, there's a lot of pride in that store. I would argue the same with Whole Foods 365. Yeah, like there's just a lot there. Now, if you're doing that in a private label opportunity in like a Walmart, that's probably not the same experience. And then you and I could just continue this and argue like, actually, that produce that's private label in Walmart is actually probably more sustainably grown and more ethically grown than any of the other produce we just mentioned because of their Project Gigaton selection requirements. So it's a whole thing. But at the end of the day, I think that we just need to understand that a brand like agriculture is going to a branded experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you look at the biggest successes, like I'm from the town. My farm is in the town where Fairlife first started, where it was first processed. So I've seen that grow from, a couple of people that worked on a single small line to massive plants all around the country, multiple plants, in a product category that hasn't grown in 30 years. So That's one brand story, but what are some of the other brand stories in agriculture that you've seen that we should look at and follow their lead?
Do you follow Good Culture cottage cheese?
I've heard of them. I don't really pay attention much to their marketing.
Holy cow. Like that is a product that has taken like cottage cheese, kind of an old grandma kind of product and made it cool. It is sold out in most stores. They have reformulated the texture. It is such a cult following now they've been around for a while. I think they might have been around for like a decade.
Okay.
They rebranded, they doubled down on their product, and they doubled down on TikTok. And it became a TikTok sensation. And now cottage cheese and protein videos are the new it girl of basically social media. So it's sort of like what feta was 2 years ago. It's what cauliflower rice was 5 years ago. Like it has just become a thing, but it really kind of doubled down and started giving consumers what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. And
more information in the way they want to consume it. Lit the whole category
on fire, not just
oh my
brand,
gosh.
Right?
Like that. I mean, like it is an incredible product. I have it in my fridge. I try, and it's sort of like one of those things, like I wish I could buy in bulk, but like it will go bad. So obviously I just have to keep an extra eye out.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the key lessons that we can take away from them, maybe Fairlife, some of those other really big brands that just are superstars in what they did?
Well, I think what Fairlife did with packaging was really something. It was really something. I mean, Fairlife, basically, they reinvigorated the milk category with packaging that respected that people might want more than single use. Like they, especially with the smaller bottles, it's like we weren't saying, oh, we're just going to give you milk in a carton now, and we're just going to assume if you're done and you don't want to finish it, you're just going to throw it away. We're saying, no, we're going to put a cap on it, and we're going to have texture. We're going to make it look cool to actually hold it, and we're going to invest in like a brand that you actually think is cool. And we're going to invest in different flavors. I mean, like it was a whole thing, but the difference is it had consumers at the heart of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It didn't start with, we need to move X amount of pounds of milk. So just process it, put it on the shelf, get it out of here.
And maybe they did, but guess what? Maybe that was like the end goal. And of course it is. They got to move milk. Like they've got cows. We know everybody gets the math, but they decided, you know what, we're going to spend money up front. We're going to spend money on an agency probably, or a graphic designer or a creative director or somebody who's going to help us rethink how this consumer might want to consume what we're selling. We're just going to turn it around a little bit. And that's where in our industry, I think they call it innovation, but it's not innovation. It's just like a consumer experience. Innovation is when you take an ingredient and make something completely different and transform it utilizing nutrition. Everybody gets it wrong, So, those stories, like, we could. I think that if you and I just like went through all like the major food categories, we could probably think of who those leaders are in all of those categories, right? Like who did sliced cheese, what Good Culture did to cottage cheese, what Fairlife did to milk. We could definitely think through that, but it's like, who's going to be the crazy one? Who's going to be the crazy guy or woman to like actually be like, you know what? Let's not hate our end user. Let's actually embrace who they are and understand what they need.
Well,
but that's expensive, Paul, and people.
It is, yeah.
Like short-sighted people or people who are just like barely making their farm credit payments every year. They don't have the luxury to think like that. And maybe they're just.
And we don't want to go to talk to people. That's why we're farmers, right? We just leave us out in the field, leave us on the tractor, leave me with my cows.
I know.
And let somebody else do that for me, right?
I think that has probably been like the biggest, like, I don't know, kick in the shins for a lot of farmers is like, dude. I'm just like, what happened to me? And I would argue there's people in my own family that are, the grandfather age. They're like, what happened to just like farming a great crop and getting it in and getting it harvested and getting it to the dryer or getting it to the huller or getting it to the plant? Like, what the hell? Now I have to sell it too. Like, what are you doing? And I think that's just sort of like, that's the place where it's like, you know what, if you're just mad about that, and frankly, there's a lot of people that are, you need to not be working on selling your commodity, your product. You need to be working on your succession plan and get out of the way, because otherwise you are actually going to fumble this whole thing, and your grandkids aren't going to have the opportunity because you're just mad that it's not 1985. Like, that is the majority of a lot of meetings. And I sit down with our clients who are farmers. They are hardworking people. They are well capitalized. They've got equity and everything. They own it all, and they are still throwing their hands up, and they're like, what do I do? It is literally like, if you are so angry that it's not 1985, before the internet and before, labor went through the roof, like, if you're still mad about that, and you still think it's crazy that you have to send emails with pricing versus talking to your guy on the other side of the country, you need to just go to your accountant and work on your succession plan with your lawyer and your accountant, and just get out of the way, because we're not going back.
Yep.
So
that's truth that a lot of people probably don't want to hear. So,
but they don't mind hearing it from me for some reason. Like, and I think
maybe you're not very threatening, right?
No, and I'm 6 feet tall, for God's sakes. Like, no, I am, and I am this intense all the time. But like, what I'll say is, I know, but what I'll say is, it's like, not without hope. Yeah. It's like, if this is who you are, I think that's the other
point of the message, right?
That's where it's sort of like, there is hope, but you're going to have to think differently, and you're going to have to be in meetings, and you're going to have to be vulnerable, and it's going to be scary. And frankly, in the beginning, it's expensive, because it's another, and sometimes it's a capital expense, sometimes it's an operating expense, but it's going to be expensive if you're trying to do something new. But the amount, Paul, the amount of phone calls I get from very reputable, like, food brands or agriculture brands that are like along the tune of, we just spent $5 million on this piece of equipment, and we don't know how to get a return on investment for it. What do you think? And then it's like, why didn't you call me when you were installing this? Like, I know that you took 2 years to build the facility. You've been doing food safety checks for a year. You had to do your certifications, and now you're running and sending samples to people, and you still don't know how, and now you're calling me. Did you just think if you built it, people are going to buy it? No, they don't.
Yeah.
But that is how my agency has grown by 100% every year for the last 4 years, is those conversations, because I'm not going to make them feel stupid. Like, they're great business people in a lot of sense. They just haven't understood. And then I say, okay, you just spent $5 million and you have no plan for, and now I'm telling you that we need to spend $500,000 in brand planning and brand building in the first year. I get that $500,000 seems expensive, but doesn't losing $5 million in a down year when you don't need a tax write-off seem a little bit more expensive?
Right. We just need a recalibration in agriculture of timing and really of value. What's bringing the actual value, the actual return to the farm?
It's a total recalibration. And if I hear one more person say, we just need to tell our story, that's where I just I wish I had like a little stick and be like, stop saying that. Just give me your hand and stop saying that. Like, it's not about telling our story. It's about embracing modern marketing practices to reach consumers who, if they knew about your product and the brands that you sell to, would want to go buy it.
Yep.
And it's not enough just to put it in a bag and put it on a shelf and get on a shelf. And no, because you're going to be buying it back from the shelf and picking it up. Like, you actually have to know how it works all the way through. You have to know who your target consumer is, who cares about what you're growing. And there are ways. There is consumer insights testing. There is product testing. There are so many practices that we can utilize and technology we can utilize, but you're going to have to spend money on it, just like you invest in everything else. And we all know, Paul, you know this, no farmer is afraid of investment. They've been investing and taking risk every year for their whole life. It's not about actually spending the money in a lot of cases. It's about understanding what you're spending and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And how to get that return out of it, because it's been a black box for a lot of farmers for a long time. Is if I can sell it to a co-op down the road and know I'm going to get X for it, even though X is break even. I
Mhm.
know that process. I'm familiar with it, so therefore
Mhm.
that's what I'm going to do. That's
I just need to save that. I just need to pay the bank back and have a little bit left.
one thing you were just talking about with
Mhm.
the consumers. What
Mhm.
are some of the consumer trends that you think will most shape the future of food and agriculture marketing over the next, well, probably a decade would be too long of a time frame, but the next couple of years?
I think what's going to shape consumer, I think that they're going to like whatever they learn about their, I think consumer curiosity in food is going to continue to be shaped by trends that they see on social media.
Okay.
And then I think they're going to seek it out, right?
So
They're
how do
going
those get there though? Like this, is it just one day somebody makes a post that goes viral and that starts the trend, or what does that look like?
Okay, so like let's go back to good culture.
Yeah.
So good culture decided we're gonna put a bunch of we're gonna do some deals with some influencers. We're gonna embrace this thing called TikTok. And and for some of your listeners who probably maybe don't even know what that is, that's a very viral social media technology that is controversial all the time, but is wildly sticky. Is the best way to say. And so good culture decided we are going to double down on TikTok. We're going to rebrand. We're going to put this out there. We're going to hire people to make recipes and eat our food that are healthy. It goes viral. People might have it in certain target markets where they're originally selling. It was a regional play for a long time. And then consumers are like, hey, I want to try that. They're going to their grocery store. They're going to Good Culture's website. They're saying, hey, when are you coming to Michigan? When are you coming to Texas? When are you coming? And so then you are doing it's basically lead demand generation.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going and saying, I want to buy this. This is obviously cottage cheese. I'm probably not buying cottage cheese through the mail. Although a lot of people buy ice cream and other perishable items, and there's a lot, our clients are selling artichokes all over the country. It is fascinating what certain people will pay for an artichoke. So those people are out there, I will tell you, but that's demand generation. And then pretty soon you've got all the buyers that are they're at the right food trade shows. They're at the, they're at Expo West and they're at different shows clamoring to get orders. And right now, Good Culture cannot fill their orders fast enough. They're building their own cottage cheese plants.
Yep.
So they can control the quality. They don't want to use a co-packer. So all of a sudden, this is just an example of they gave consumers knowledge. Consumers said, I like it. They went out of their way to try it. They're clamoring for it. And now they've created their own tailspin.
Interesting.
A good tailspin, like activity.
How do you see technology changing? I mean, you just mentioned TikTok, but there's other technologies out there. How do you see that playing a role in this whole brand creation and movement to recalibrate marketing in agriculture?
Less private label, meaning less grocery store brands, more understanding where your food comes from, more having a good sense of who you're buying from, more ethical sourcing and procurement in food service and institutional. Those are all just a few of the things, because otherwise farmers are just going to continue to be price takers. Whatever price you got, I'll decide if I'm going to take. If my back's up against the wall and if I've got fresh produce, for God's sakes, or dairy or anything else, anything perishable, I'll take it. Like that's where it's sort of like, are we creating our own market, or are we taking what the market tells us we're going to get?
Mm-hmm.
And forever we have been price takers. And this is like, I'm not saying that every farmer should go out and start their own brand, because that is definitely not the case. And I'm not saying you should go start going to farmers markets. Like, it's not that, but it's more like, are you aligned? And I get it. In a lot of cases, like isn't a lot of choice. Like I know a lot of like wheat mills, like maybe you got to go to the closest guy because the other guy's 1,000 miles away. Like I understand all this. That's how it is. And especially a lot of like regeneratively grown products. But like, am I aligned with how my packer, if I'm a contract farmer, am I aligned with how they market? Am I aligned with where they're going? Do I believe in their vision? Like, is there potential for me to get a greater return on investment if I'm, say, a partner in helping them sell this?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, but this is for the folks that are like the hand raisers who are going to say, I'm going to go above and beyond what is like the old way of doing it. Again, just getting it into the truck and off your property used to be like, oh, God bless it, we're done. It didn't rain during harvest. We made it. Off it goes. It's their problem now, right? And we'll see what they're going to give us.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for the check. And that is just so gone. Like, if you are ambitious and I also have to say, I'm just like kind of loving where the agfluencer's going. There are so many adorable people who are farmers who now are embracing social. They're younger typically.
Yep.
Not in every case, but a lot of times they're kind of younger. They're just more ambitious and understand that, like, you're going to have to go out there and hustle for your contracts. Like, if you're not okay just like price taking whatever somebody's going to give you, you're going to have to go hustle your contracts. You're going to have farm tours. You're going to have business meetings. You're going to have to learn how to read contracts. Like, that's where it's going.
Yeah, those are the people that are going to be here for the next generation.
We'd like to think so, right, Paul?
Yeah. I want a quick pivot. I know we don't have much time left, but I want a quick pivot. We did mention you participated and won a medal in the Olympics. So
I did.
I think that's pretty cool. I think you're the first, you might be the first Olympian that I've had on the podcast. So congratulations for that. Tell us a little bit about your experience there and then how that's maybe been embedded in your business.
Sure. So I competed in the 2004 Olympic Games in the sport of rowing. I was in the women's 8. And I made 7 national teams during my rowing career. And I started rowing at the University of San Diego. So I would say I've always been a teamwork person. In high school, I was a 12-time letterwoman. So all in team sports. So I definitely love that. I think that is just sort of inherently built into who I am. I'm very comfortable leading. I also feel comfortable following. I also just like to win. So whoever I think is the greatest path to winning is probably who I'm going to go with. And if I have to lead, I will. If I'm better off as a number 2 or number 3, even yesterday we were in a big client meeting and I played like a very number 2 role and I loved it because I knew that client would probably connect more with a woman on my team than me. So I think this, it's inherent. It's just I don't think going to the Olympics is kind of informed how I lead, but I think there are things I learned from very competitive international rowing. So, for example, I'd rather win. I don't want to win every single little battle. I want to win the war. So that's something where I just always try to keep that long vision. So in rowing, leading up to the Olympics or World Championships, you probably, if you're going all out, you're probably not going to win everything. And so, but you're also getting faster every time. So when I say if you're probably not going to win everything, it means that you're probably sort of phoning it in on some races so that you can be extra fast against another person. So you have some left in the tank. So that's something I think I kind of learned if I kind of resonate with that. How I get kind of ready for big meetings reminds me a little bit of how I got ready for sports. So
I would think that's very similar, right?
Yeah. I will, work backwards. When am I, how am I going to be the best I can be for a 9:00 meeting? Okay. Well, that probably means I'm going to work out in the morning. I need to make sure that I have enough hydration and what's my outfit going to be and what's my timeline going to be and how's my skin going to, so all the things that it takes for a woman to look very professional. I do all of those things. And I think that that's just sort of like big meeting prep is big race prep. That's definitely it. And also just knowing how to turn it on. That is where I think that really competitive athletes have a huge advantage. The pressure. How can you handle high pressure moments? Do they make you cave and freak out, or do they make you find a new level and just unlock a whole new level of confidence. I definitely have that. And I always say to the team, like, the only way to get good at the hard stuff is to do the hard stuff.
Definitely.
So, and that is very much so like competing in sports. The only way to get great at like winning at big games is to probably fail at big games, learn from it, and then keep like trying to get into big games, right? And that is that's like just a forever thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great mentality to have, whether you're in sports or business. That's really what it takes to win, right?
Yeah, like in Harvard, like especially a lot of like your listeners, like, and I see it. I mean, we have a farm management business and a harvesting business. Like, we're in it, and it's sort of like, are you going to crumble, or are you going to just get your book out and you're going to say, like, I'm going to do this? Like, we all, like, even with my husband, we talk about like, how are you going to control the controllables?
Yeah.
So in this case, like, you can't control the weather, you can't control traffic when you're moving equipment. Like, there's a lot of things you can't control. What can we control? We can control that we have a plan. We can control that, like, the guys know where they're supposed to be. We can control that they have ice in their ice chest and they have water. We can, like, what can we control to set ourselves up for success in what feels like a untenable amount of stress, which is harvest,
Right. One powerful action or challenge that you'd have for the audience to take away from what we're talking about here today?
Just get much smarter on the industry of whatever you're growing. Much smarter. And so set Google News alerts. If you are a wheat farmer, set Google News alerts for wheat. Set for new wheat kinds of food. Understand what's happening in innovation. Read about innovation. Google about innovation. What's happening in your category. Understand like consumer sentiment. Like, just read a lot more. Get a lot smarter about what's happening outside of your little bubble of what it takes to grow it. And I don't mean from an ag perspective. I mean from a food perspective. Like, what are consumers looking for? So that way you can be part of the trend and not just like watching it happen before you. I think that would probably be like, and that's free. It just takes time. Right. Knowledge is power, right? So that'd probably be something I think through.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Like you said, we've always done that as farmers. We have our big, huge magazines that we read about for agronomy or how to take care of a cow better, but we don't do that for marketing. And I think that's a great point to end this with. But Allie, I really appreciate your time. Allie, how can people find out more about what you're doing and the work that Noble West is working on?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking, Paul. You can definitely follow us at wearenoblewest.com. That's our website. And we have some really great content on the site. Also, social media at We Are Noble West on Instagram. And then I always love it when people follow me on LinkedIn. That's a really important platform for me. And I do share a lot about kind of trends, what's happening in the industry. And my name is Allie Cox. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allie. It's been a pleasure and appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thanks, Paul.